Welcome to the Seriously Social podcast with your host, Simone Douglas. Our guest today is Demelza Thorpe from Powder Monkey Design. She chats with Simone about how she turned her side hustle into her main hustle and about how good business and good design grow from meaningful relationships with your clients.
Okay, so today I'm joined for the Seriously Social podcast by Demelza from Powder Monkey Design.
Hello.
Hello, and thanks for coming today.
It's an absolute pleasure.
So perhaps you can start off by giving us a bit of a backstory about who you are and Powder Monkey Design and what it's all about.
Sure. I'm a freelance graphic designer. I guess the journey to that really started in 2018. I made the decision to make my side hustle my main hustle. So that involved going on a bit of a journey. At that point in time, I'd been a graphic designer for 20 years, and I had I had a really diverse career. So I'd worked, in-house for printers. I'd worked, I taught at TAFE for a while, taught design. So I had a really great breadth of design knowledge, but I didn't know anything about small business. So I had to start that journey.
Yeah.
I spent the next year just learning everything I could on a really steep but really rewarding learning curve, just learning all about how to run a business.
Yeah.
And I mean, when you're there, you live, sleep, eat, drink your business 24/7.
You really do, 24/7.
And when it came to the point where I was ready to leave the day job and start freelancing, I realised that that was my point of common ground. Like most of my potential or my actual clients had been on that journey or were still on that journey.
Yeah.
So I started to gear my processes and create packages that were designed to suit small business owners.
Yeah, cool.
And that Powder Monkey Design was born, and the response has been really positive. But also what the interesting thing is, what started out as a search for a USP has really turned into a passion. I just love I love helping people build their businesses, and I love learning from them, and I love the fact that I can use design to help them get where they're going. Cool. So it's been this kind of combination of the design knowledge and then this new knowledge that I'm still learning.
Brought it all together. Yeah, for sure. Do you think it's a bit of a challenge? Well, I think with brand new business owners, so when you take that leap of faith and you finally go, do you know what? I'm actually going to be a full-time business owner now. And a lot of them, because they're really good at what they do, that's where their passion is, but they don't have a real concept of what's important about branding and design.
Very much so.
What advice would you give to someone who is contemplating whether or not they work with a graphic designer here locally versus, God help us, something like 99 Designs?
Yeah. Clearly, I wish 99 Designs didn't exist, because every graphic designer does. It's an Australian company, but the majority of the work is getting done for $5 by people, overseas. And the work that, I've dealt with artwork that comes out of there. It's not great artwork either. But I would say to people, you do what you need to do at that point in your business. And a lot of people do start like that. Yeah. They start out doing something on Canva or something on 99 Designs until they can afford to then put a bit more money into it.
Yeah.
But I do say to people, if you're going to, because I'm all about starting lean, and DIY is very much a part of when you start a business. You do everything until you can afford to then,
pay
outsource.
Someone to do it. Yeah.
But I do say to people, if you put a bit of money into one thing at the very start of your business, a logo is the thing to put it into.
Well, because once you've got it,
it will grow with you, and if it's well designed, it'll grow with you. If you build that relationship also with a local designer rather than the 99 Designs thing, you then have someone that will go on that journey with you. So you can say, okay, I'm getting t-shirts printed now, they want a vector file, can you do that for me? I'm getting a website built, I need my logo reversed out in this way and that way and at this size, and you have that person that can then do that for you. So you don't have to pay for a massive branding package all in one go. You can do it, as cash flow allows. So
for sure. I mean, if you take that to the other end of the scale, I was having a conversation with another graphic designer the other day at a lunch, and she was saying, the other challenge is that sometimes you've got really big companies, and so they have these massive marketing advertising agencies who they work with. But she does their local design work.
Oh, right.
And she says, often what happens is that the massive marketing agency have complicated the and multi-layered the branding elements so much that often she has to redesign them from scratch.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. To replicate the work that's already been done so that it's in a format that can be edited or changed.
Yeah, because it's just been bastardized over time.
Yeah.
And that must be really tricky, because one of the things that there was a lot of motivations for going freelance, but one of them was when you work in that kind of structure, you have a real disconnect. There's a real disconnect between you and the client.
Yeah.
And that relationship, because I always say design's a collaborative process. So you know everything. You are the world's leading expert on your business, and I know design, and together we collaborate to create the design that's right for you. But a lot of the time when you work in agencies or even in-house, there's several steps between you and the end user.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make for the best finished product. So I imagine that she probably experiences a bit of that too, like when you're designing something for, via another company for some end user that you've never met.
It's so hard.
It can be done, and sometimes it has to be done, but the best design really comes from good relationships, I think.
So, I think that is a challenge in terms of white labelling design.
Definitely.
Because we're a bit the same with social media. Okay, when we white label to advertising agencies, it's a very different interface.
I can imagine.
So you're kind of hoping that the agency
has made that connection and taken the brief properly.
And
when you need to ask a question, you have to go back to them and then they pass it on. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it can be challenging on all sides, but I'm curious, to go back to what you were saying about the brand growing with you, because I think that, businesses start off quite small and they're doing, bits and pieces, but how do you ensure that how do you figure out whether you have a brand that is going to stand the test of time? What are some of the key elements that you would want to be understand? And
such a good question. And I think it just depends on the business and the industry. So again, it goes back to having that connection with the initial client and kind of finding out what their goals are. But I think that if you've got something that is appropriate for the target market, so I really like to talk to my clients about, have you done that groundwork? Like, do you know who you're actually talking to? Because a lot of people just go, well, I love this color, and my nan's favorite flower was this, so we'll put it in the logo or whatever. But I think it's like any marketing collateral, if it's not going back to your audience, or if you don't even know who your audience is, it's not going to be the best it can be. So I think if your brand is appropriate for the audience that you're speaking to at the time, it should grow with you. I think also if you've got a good quality artwork, it can grow with you, because a lot of times people get stuff done and they've just got a JPEG, and then they need to change the format of the logo, make it horizontal, make it stacked, reverse it out. And a bit like your friend was saying, then the artwork has to be done again. And
well, and I think too, social media has changed the way we look at logo design a lot too, in terms of the fact, I often talk to my clients if they're starting businesses and go, make sure that you have a design element or a branding element that makes a great profile picture. That is part of your logo. Absolutely. That you can pull out of your logo.
And I do a Facebook icon for, I mentioned before, I have packages. And when I do a logo pack, I include a Facebook icon as part of that, because a lot of people will put their logo square, they put it in, it crops the corners off of it and all of that sort of stuff. And I also ask people to think very much about their Facebook header image, because a lot of people kind of shove their logo in there. So you've got logo and then logo at the top cropped weirdly again.
And
so
it looks strange.
It really has. I started as a graphic designer in the late 90s, and social media was 10 years away, and even web design was it was a completely separate discipline. Like, I didn't study it when I was at TAFE, and it was in its infancy, and all of that has kind of just changed and continues to change. I think if you were to speak to a designer of a different vintage to me, like say someone that had been doing it for 40 years, they would say it's never changed so much so quickly. Because every year you're like, well, okay, they've changed all the sizes,
Another update. What do you mean?
So, you really just have to be so on top of all of that.
Yeah.
But it's thrilling.
It is thrilling.
It's what gets you out of bed in the morning.
It does. And I think too that that's another reason to have a great relationship with a local designer.
Absolutely.
Is, as these things change and evolve, you really want to be able to tap into someone's expertise and ring them up and go, okay, so
definitely,
LinkedIn has completely changed their interface, and now my banner image looks terrible and I don't know what to do about it. So then you can get some solid design advice, because when the rest of us aren't really trained in design. So I'm a marketer by trade these days. So I'm great with words. I can come up with a 6-word story and the story of the brand and all of those kinds of things, which is important. But we like to work with designers to capture that brand. Because you guys are amazing at that visual storytelling. So I think it's important.
It's another fantastic collaboration, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Everyone brings their skills to the table and something amazing comes out of it.
So what's your favourite part about having your own business?
I think it's the relationships with clients. I think that's my favourite thing. I mean, going into it, I was thinking, this will be really good as far as flexibility goes. I have young children and all of that sort of stuff, but and that's great. But my favourite thing has just been getting back to those connections with clients, because there's been different times in my career when I've had that, especially when you work in-house, it's a bit easier. But, just to have people whose brands I know where they want to go, I know what their goals are and where they're headed. And, I really enjoy that.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
What's the biggest challenge been for you?
Ooh, having to do my own books.
Yeah, it sucks. I love my accountant.
Yes, and I've only just got to the point where I've got an accountant in the last 6 months or so. Hopefully one day I can have someone that just handles
your books and your
my
admin.
Books, because that's not my I am in this because I want to sit at my computer and design stuff. And I want to come to meetings and talk to people about their businesses and stuff like that. So doing the books.
It's
hate that. Reconciling stuff and putting in receipts.
No, it's not fun at all.
But I'm still immensely proud of myself for going to learn that, because that put me off for years. I was like, I'm a designer. I don't do maths. I can't do figures.
Yeah.
And then I just went, no, I've got to learn this. I've got to know it. And I did it. So it's like, okay.
Well, and it is kind of the golden rule. If you understand your figures, you know exactly where you are at any given time. So
that's really good advice.
Yeah, often people say to me, how do you have 3 businesses and do all of these things? And I'm like, you just have to know your numbers.
Yep.
Everything else is easy.
Yep.
And my golden rule is calculate your break-even point and make sure that you retain a client's. Well, in a service industry, that you retain a client's cover your break-even point, and then any consulting or windfalls ends up being cream. But it's definitely been a journey, and thank you very much for joining me today.
No worries.
If you want to get in touch with Demelza or reach out to Powder Monkey Designs, you will find all of her links in the caption about this podcast, and you can catch the rest of the podcasts by going to Social Media AOK's website, and we will see you next episode.
Thank you for listening to the Seriously Social podcast. See our website for more details at www.socialmediaaok.com.au/podcast. Check the show notes for credits, music used in the program, and more details about our guests.